My name is Lydia Caro, and I was 24 the night my parents locked me out of our house because my sister said I attacked her. It was late October in Ashford Hollow, the kind of town where everyone still leaves their porch lights on for neighbors. The air smelled like wet leaves and chimney smoke. I remember standing on our front step with my hands shaking, watching the lock turn on the other side of the door. My mother's voice came through the wood, tight, cold. "Lydia, go somewhere else tonight." I knocked again. "Mom, please listen, that's not what happened." But she didn't answer. Inside, I could hear my sister Veronica crying, loud enough for the whole street to hear, and my father believed every word she said. The worst part? They never even asked for my side. So there I was, standing on the porch of the house I grew up in, holding a backpack my father had thrown outside like it was trash. No keys, no coat, no place to go, and my sister was inside telling everyone I was dangerous. I kept staring at the door, waiting for it to open again, waiting for someone to realize they had made a mistake. It never happened. That night should have ended with me sleeping on a bus bench, but it didn't. Because 3 hours later, a police officer handed my father a report that made the entire story collapse. And when the truth came out, my parents realized something that terrified them. The daughter they had locked outside was the only one telling the truth. But before I explain how that police report changed everything, you need to understand something about my family, because the reason they believed Veronica so quickly didn't start that night. It started years earlier. Veronica was 2 years older than me, and in our house she was what my mom called the responsible one. She had perfect grades, perfect hair, perfect manners when guests were around. Teachers loved her. Neighbors trusted her. My parents said she was the calm one. Meanwhile, I was the daughter who asked questions, which apparently made me the difficult one. I still remember a dinner from years ago when my dad raised a toast to Veronica for winning a scholarship. Everyone clapped. Then he looked at me and said, "Lydia, maybe next year you'll give us something to celebrate too." People laughed. I laughed too, but Veronica didn't. She just looked at me across the table with that small smile she always had, the one that never quite reached her eyes. Back then, I thought it meant nothing. Now I know better. Because the truth about Veronica is that she never argued loudly. She never slammed doors. She never needed to. She had another way of getting what she wanted. She whispered. And when she whispered something to our parents, they believed her every time, even when it wasn't true. The night everything broke apart started like any other Tuesday. My parents were both working late at Caro Hardware, the family store downtown. It was just me and Veronica at home. I was in the kitchen making pasta when she walked in, holding her phone and looking strangely calm. Too calm. She leaned against the counter and watched me stir the pot. Then she said something that didn't make sense. "Lydia," she said quietly, "you should probably pack a bag tonight." I frowned at her. "Why?" She tilted her head slightly. "You'll understand later." At the time, I thought she was joking. I wish I had taken her seriously. Because 20 minutes later, she screamed from upstairs. And by the time my parents rushed through the front door, Veronica was sitting on the floor of her bedroom crying. There was a broken lamp beside her, and she was pointing straight at me. "That's her," she said through tears. "Lydia did this." My father didn't hesitate, not even for a second. He looked at me like he didn't recognize me anymore. "Get out," he said. And that was the moment I realized something terrifying. Veronica had been planning this. I just didn't know why yet. Before I go on, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely connect with this story. Drop your location and local time in the comments. I always love seeing where people are listening from. Now let me take you back to the moment everything started falling apart. Because what happened after my parents locked that door was only the beginning. And the police report that came later would reveal something none of us expected. Not even Veronica. The door closed with a sound I will never forget. It wasn't loud, just a quiet click. But in that moment, it felt like the entire house had shut me out of my own life. I stood there for a few seconds, staring at the wood grain of the front door like it might suddenly open again. It didn't. Inside, Veronica was still crying. "Dad." She pushed me. Her voice trembled through the wall. My father answered right away. "It's okay, sweetheart, we're here." My mother added softly, "You're safe now." Safe. That word stayed in my head. Safe from me. I knocked again, slower this time. "Dad, please just listen to me." There was a pause. For a second, hope rose in my chest. Then my father's voice came through the door, colder than I had ever heard it. "Lydia, we are not doing this tonight." "I didn't touch her," I said. No response. I leaned my forehead against the door. "Please, just let me explain." My mother spoke next, and her voice sounded tired. "We'll talk tomorrow. Right now Veronica is shaken." Tomorrow. The word felt like a joke. "Mom," I said quietly, "you didn't even ask what happened." Another silence. Then my father said something that hurt more than being locked outside. "We know what happened." And just like that, the conversation was over. I stood there for another minute, waiting. No one came back to the door. Finally, I stepped off the porch. It was colder than I expected. The streetlights along Birch Lane buzzed softly, casting pale yellow circles on the pavement. Our house sat at the end of the block, quiet and perfect like always. From the outside, nothing looked wrong. Inside, my family had already decided I was the villain. I sat on the curb and opened the backpack my dad had thrown out. A hoodie, my wallet, my phone charger. That was it. No coat, no toothbrush, no apology. Just the message. Go away. I pulled out my phone. 3 bars of battery left. First, I called my best friend Marla Denton. The phone rang 5 times before going to voicemail. "Hey, it's Marla. Leave a message." "Marla, it's Lydia," I said quietly. "Can you call me back? Something weird just happened." I hung up and stared at the dark screen. Then I tried someone else. Trent Voss, a co-worker from the cafe where I worked. He answered on the second ring. "Hey Lydia, what's up?" "Uh, weird question," I said. "Do you know any place open late where someone could sit for a while?" He laughed lightly. "You mean like a diner?" "Yeah, something like that. There's Harlan's Diner on West Ferry, open all night." "Thanks." "You okay?" I hesitated. Then I lied. "Yeah, just needed coffee." We hung up. I stood up slowly and looked back at the house. The living room light was still on. Through the curtains, I could see shadows moving inside. My parents talking. Veronica probably sitting on the couch, wrapped in a blanket like she was the victim of something terrible. I suddenly remembered the look she gave me earlier in the kitchen. Calm. Too calm. "You should probably pack a bag tonight." The memory made my stomach tighten. Why would she say that unless she already knew what was about to happen? I pushed the thought away and started walking down Birch Lane. Halfway to the corner, my phone buzzed. For a second, I hoped it was Marla calling back. It wasn't. It was a message from my mother. "Mom, stay somewhere safe tonight. We'll figure this out tomorrow." That was it. No question, no concern. Just instructions. I typed a reply. Me. I didn't touch her. The message showed read almost immediately, but she didn't answer. I slipped the phone into my pocket and kept walking. The town was quiet this time of night. Ashford Hollow always felt peaceful after 10. Stores closed early, streets empty except for the occasional car passing through. But that night, every step felt heavier. Because something about the whole situation didn't make sense. Veronica crying, the broken lamp, my parents arriving exactly when she screamed, the way she pointed at me so quickly, and that strange warning she gave me earlier. You should pack a bag tonight. A chill ran down my back. I stopped walking. A new thought formed in my head. What if that scream wasn't panic? What if it was timing? I turned around and looked back down the street toward my house. The porch light glowed faintly in the distance. For a moment I considered walking back and knocking again, demanding they listen. But then, I remembered my father's voice. We know what happened. No, they had already made up their minds. So I kept walking toward West Ferry Street. I had almost reached the intersection when headlights turned the corner behind me. A police cruiser rolled slowly down Birch Lane. It passed me at first. Then the brake lights flashed. The car stopped. And the reverse lights came on. The cruiser backed up until it was beside me. The passenger window rolled down. A middle-aged officer leaned slightly toward me. His name tag read, Officer Nolan Graves. Evening, he said calmly. You live around here? I nodded. Yeah. He looked at the backpack on my shoulder. Then he glanced toward the end of the street where my house stood. That your place down there? My stomach tightened. Yeah. He studied my face for a second longer. Then he asked a question that made my heart start beating faster. Mind telling me why your parents just reported a domestic incident involving you? The words hit me like ice water. Wait. What? Officer Graves tilted his head slightly. They said there was an assault. My breath caught in my throat. An assault. Veronica hadn't just accused me of breaking a lamp. She had told them I attacked her. And suddenly, I understood something terrifying. If my parents believed that story, tonight was about to get a lot worse. Officer Graves watched my reaction carefully. You didn't know about the report? He asked. I shook my head slowly. No. The officer leaned back in his seat for a moment, studying me like he was trying to measure something invisible. Behind him, the police. Radio crackled softly. My throat felt dry. What exactly did they say? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he asked another question. How old are you? 24. And your sister? 26. He nodded slightly. Then he said something that made my chest tighten. Your sister told dispatch that you pushed her during an argument and broke a lamp in her room. My stomach dropped. She said she fell and hit the floor, he continued. Claimed you've been acting aggressive all evening. I stared at him. That's not true. Officer Graves didn't react to that immediately. He just kept watching me. Police officers get lied to all the time. I could see that in his eyes. He wasn't picking sides yet. He was waiting. So I forced myself to breathe slowly and said, I never touched her. What happened then? The question hung in the cool night air. I thought about the kitchen again. The boiling pasta. Veronica, leaning against the counter. The way she said, You should probably pack a bag tonight. My skin prickled. Nothing happened, I said quietly. That's the problem. Officer Graves raised one eyebrow. Nothing? We barely spoke tonight. That part was true. But it wasn't the whole story. Because earlier that evening, something strange had happened. Something I hadn't understood at the time, and now it suddenly felt important. I was making dinner, I continued slowly. Veronica came into the kitchen with her phone. She looked calm. Calm. Too calm. The officer tilted his head slightly. What do you mean? She told me something weird. What was it? I hesitated. Then I repeated the exact words. She said I should probably pack a bag tonight. Officer Graves frowned. That's an odd thing to say. Yeah. We both stood there for a moment in silence. Finally, he asked, "What happened after that?" I rubbed my arms, trying to fight the cold creeping through my hoodie. "She went upstairs. I stayed in the kitchen." "How long?" "Maybe 20 minutes. And then?" I swallowed. "Then she screamed." Officer Graves crossed his arms. "You went upstairs?" "Yeah, of course I did." "And what did you see?" This was the part that kept replaying in my head, over and over. "I saw Veronica sitting on the floor beside her desk," I said slowly. "The lamp was broken, glass everywhere." "Was she hurt?" "No." The officer looked surprised. "No?" She looked shaken, but she wasn't bleeding. She didn't have bruises. Nothing like that. "Did she say you pushed her then?" "No." "What did she say?" I let out a short breath. "She didn't say anything at first. She just stared at me." "And?" "And then we heard my parents' car pulling into the driveway." Officer Graves nodded slowly. "Then she started crying." The officer's eyes narrowed slightly. "Crying?" "Yeah. Loud. Like someone had just hurt her." "And when your parents came upstairs?" "That's when she pointed at me." My voice dropped. "She said I pushed her." The street went quiet for a moment. Officer Graves leaned one elbow on the door of the cruiser. "Did you argue with her before the lamp broke?" "No." "Did you touch her at all?" "No." "Did you break the lamp?" "No." He studied me again, this time longer. Then he asked a question that made my stomach twist. "Your parents seemed pretty convinced when they called." I let out a bitter laugh. "They always believe Veronica." The officer didn't comment on that. Instead, he reached into the car and grabbed a small notebook. "Here's the thing," he said calmly. "When someone calls in a domestic incident, we have to document it." My pulse quickened. "Am I in trouble?" "Not necessarily." He clicked his pen. "But the report says your sister claims you pushed her during an argument." "There was no argument." "Did anyone else see what happened?" "No." "Any cameras around the house?" I shook my head. "Not that I know of." He scribbled something in the notebook. Then he asked something unexpected. "What time did your parents arrive home?" "About 8:30, I think." "And the scream happened right before that?" "Yeah." "Interesting." The way he said that word made my chest tighten. "Why?" Officer Graves glanced down the street toward my house, then back at me. "Because dispatch logged the call from your father at 8:22. I blinked. "Wait, what?" "8:22. "But that doesn't make sense," I said. "Why not?" "My parents didn't get home until after the scream." The officer tapped his pen against the notebook, slowly. "So you're saying the call happened before the incident?" "That's what it sounds like." Officer Graves didn't say anything for a few seconds. Then he closed the notebook. "Well," he said calmly, "that's something we'll need to clear up." My heart started beating faster, because suddenly the whole situation felt different. If my parents called before Veronica screamed, then someone in that house already knew a fight was about to happen. And there was only one person who could have told them that: Veronica. The officer reached for the radio on his shoulder. "Dispatch," he said, pressing the button. "Can you confirm the timestamp on that Caro residence call?" Static crackled for a moment. Then a voice answered through the speaker. "Affirmative. First call logged at 8:22. Officer Graves looked at me again. This time his expression had changed. Just slightly. "Miss Caro," he said quietly, "I think we may need to ask your sister a few more questions." A chill ran down my spine. Because if the timeline didn't match, then Veronica's story was already starting to fall apart. But what I didn't realize yet was that the police report wasn't the only thing about to change that night. There was something else the officer was about to notice. Something Veronica had completely forgotten about. And when it came up, my parents would finally realize how badly they had misjudged me. Officer Nolan Graves stayed quiet for a moment after the radio confirmed the time of the call. The street was still, the wind barely moving the leaves along Birch Lane. I could hear my own breathing, quick and shallow. Finally, he looked at me again. "Miss Caro," he said calmly, "I'm going to ask you something important. I need you to answer honestly." "I will," I said. "Has anything like this ever happened before between you and your sister?" The question surprised me. "No," I said. "We argue sometimes like any siblings, but nothing physical." He studied my face. "You've never pushed her before?" "No." "Threatened her?" "Never." He nodded slowly. "Your parents mentioned in the call that you've been unstable lately." The word hit me harder than I expected. Unstable. I looked away toward the sidewalk. "I've been working double shifts at the cafe," I said quietly. "I'm tired a lot." Maybe that's what they meant. The officer didn't write anything down this time. Instead, he asked another question. "Do you and Veronica get along?" I let out a soft laugh. "That depends on who you ask." "Meaning?" "Meaning she's good at making people think everything is fine." Officer Graves leaned slightly closer to the open window. "You think she lied tonight?" "I don't think," I said. "I know." He held my gaze for a few seconds. Then he nodded, toward the backpack on my shoulder. "Where were you heading?" "Harlan's Diner. A coworker said it's open all night." "That's about a 20-minute walk." "I know." He glanced back toward the end of Birch Lane again. Then he sighed and opened the car door. "Get in." I blinked. "What?" "I'll give you a ride." "That's not necessary." "I know," he said calmly, "but I'd like to ask a few more questions along the way." For a moment I hesitated. Then I opened the passenger door and sat down. The inside of the cruiser smelled faintly like coffee and cold air. Officer Graves started the engine and the car rolled slowly down the street. Neither of us spoke for the first few seconds. As we passed the corner, I glanced back through the rear window. My house was still visible in the distance. The porch light glowed softly, like nothing had happened. Like a normal family still lived there. Officer Graves broke the silence. "You said your sister warned you earlier." "Yeah." "What exactly did she say again?" "That I should pack a bag tonight." "And she said it calmly?" "Very." "Did she explain why?" "No." "Did she seem upset about anything earlier in the evening?" "Not really." "Did you argue with her recently? Today? Yesterday? Last week?" I shook my head. "No." He nodded once. Then he asked something that made me pause. "Does your sister have any reason to want you out of the house?" I frowned. "I don't think so." But even as I said it, another memory slipped into my mind. Something small. Something I hadn't thought about earlier. "Actually," I said slowly. "Yes?" "She's been acting strange the past couple days." "How?" "She keeps taking phone calls outside." "Private calls?" "Yeah." "And that's unusual?" "Very." Officer Graves tapped the steering wheel thoughtfully. "What about tonight?" "What about it?" "Did she receive any calls before the incident?" I thought back to the kitchen. The boiling water. Veronica leaning against the counter with her phone. "Yes," I said quietly. "One call." "Did you hear what it was about?" "No," but she stepped into the hallway to answer. "And after the call?" "She came back into the kitchen." "And told you to pack a bag?" "Yeah." The officer didn't say anything for a moment. Then he slowed the cruiser as we approached a red light. "Miss Caro," he said, "can I ask one more thing?" "Sure." "When your parents arrived home tonight, did they seem surprised?" The question made my chest tighten. I replayed the moment in my head. The front door opening. My father rushing upstairs. My mother following behind him. neither of them asking what happened first, neither of them looking confused. They moved like they already knew something was wrong, like they had been expecting it. My stomach sank. They didn't seem surprised, I said quietly. Officer Graves nodded once like he had expected that answer. The light turned green and the cruiser moved forward. We drove another block in silence before he spoke again. Here's the thing about domestic calls, he said. When people report them, they're usually emotional, scared, sometimes angry. I waited. But your father sounded prepared. Prepared. The word made a cold knot form in my chest. What does that mean? It means he called before arriving home. But how would he know something happened? That's the question. The cruiser pulled into the parking lot of Harlan's Diner. The bright neon sign buzzed above the door, lighting up the empty asphalt. Officer Graves parked the car but didn't turn off the engine yet. Instead, he reached into the center console and pulled out a small tablet. Dispatch sent me the incident details, he said. He tapped the screen and scrolled through the report. Then his brow furrowed. That's odd. What? He turned the tablet slightly so I could see it. This says your sister told your parents she was scared of you earlier tonight. My chest tightened. What time? 7:50. But the scream happened around 8:30. Exactly. He looked back at me. That means she warned them 40 minutes before anything actually happened. A chill spread through my arms. She knew something was coming, I whispered. Or she planned something. The officer shut off the tablet and leaned back in his seat. Then he said something that made my heart start racing. I think we should go back. To the house? Yes. Why? Because if your sister staged that scene, he said calmly, there might still be evidence there. My stomach twisted. Evidence. Suddenly the broken lamp didn't feel random anymore. Neither did the screaming. And neither did the way my parents locked the door so quickly. Officer Graves started the engine again and shifted the cruiser into drive. But as we pulled out of the diner parking lot, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I took it out. A message from Veronica. Just 3 words. You should run. My hands started shaking, because people don't send messages like that unless they're afraid of what might happen next. I stared at the message for a long second before showing it to Officer Nolan Graves. Look at this. He glanced over as he drove. From your sister? Yeah. He slowed the cruiser slightly and pulled over near the curb under a streetlight. The glow from the phone lit up the inside of the car. He read the text silently. You should run. His expression didn't change much, but I noticed the way his jaw tightened. Did she send anything else? He asked. No. Call her. I blinked. Right now? Yes. I hesitated. Veronica wasn't the kind of person who panicked easily. If she had sent that message, something had shifted. Something she didn't expect. My fingers felt cold as I tapped her name. The phone rang once, twice. Then she answered. Her voice came through the speaker softer than usual. Lydia? The sound of her saying my name made my chest tighten. Yeah. There was a pause. Then she whispered, Where are you? I glanced at Officer Graves. He nodded slightly, signaling me to continue. Why? I asked. Just tell me. Why do you care? I said. Another pause. Then Veronica said something strange. Because things are getting worse. My heart started beating faster. What do you mean? I mean, she said quietly. Dad is really angry right now. I almost laughed. He was already angry when he threw me out. You don't understand, she replied quickly. He thinks you're lying to the police. Officer Graves leaned closer so he could hear better. I tried to keep my voice steady. Veronica, why did you send that message? What message? You should run. Her breathing went quiet for a moment. I didn't mean it like that. Like what? Like you're thinking. Then explain it. Another long pause. For the first time since I had known her, Veronica sounded nervous. I just meant, maybe you should stay away tonight. Why? Because things are complicated. That answer only made the knot in my stomach tighten. What did you tell Mom and Dad? I asked. The truth. No, I said softly. You didn't. Silence filled the line. Then Veronica spoke again, her voice sharper now. You broke the lamp and shoved me. That's not what happened. Yes, it is. You know it isn't. She didn't answer. I could hear faint sounds in the background of the call. Voices. My father talking to someone. Maybe another officer. I swallowed. Veronica, why did you tell them I attacked you? Her answer came slowly. Because you scared me. Scared you how? You've been acting strange lately. I stared out the windshield. Strange. That same word again? That's not a reason to lie, I said quietly. I'm not lying. Officer Graves reached over and gently pressed the button to put the call on speaker. Miss Caro, he said calmly. Veronica gasped when she heard the unfamiliar voice. Who's that? This is Officer Nolan Graves with Ashford Hollow Police Department. The line went completely silent. You're currently speaking on speaker, he continued. I'd like to ask you a few questions regarding the incident tonight. For several seconds there was no response. Then Veronica said, very carefully, I already told the other officers what happened. I understand, Graves said, but there are a few details we need to clarify. What kind of details? Timing. Another pause. What about it? Your father reported the incident at 8:22. Yes. But Lydia says the scream happened closer to 8:30. She's wrong? Are you sure? Yes. Graves glanced at me briefly before speaking again. Then maybe you can help us understand something. What? If Lydia pushed you around 8:22, how did your parents arrive home at 8:30? The line went quiet again. So quiet I could hear Veronica breathing. Finally she said, they were already on the way home. Interesting, Graves replied calmly. Because your father told dispatch he received a call from you first. My heart skipped. A call? Veronica's voice tightened. I might have called them earlier. How much earlier? I don't remember. The officer leaned slightly closer to the phone. 7:50? The silence that followed felt heavy. When Veronica finally spoke again, her voice sounded different. Smaller. Yes. And during that call you told them you were afraid of your sister? Yes. Graves tapped the steering wheel slowly. So you warned them nearly 40 minutes before the alleged assault. I told you, Veronica said quickly. She's been acting unstable. I felt my hands curl into fists. That's not true, I said. You yelled at me earlier, she insisted. No, I didn't. Yes, you did. You're making that up. Her voice suddenly rose. I'm not making anything up. Officer Graves interrupted calmly. Miss Caro, one last question. What? When Lydia came upstairs after the lamp broke, was she the first person you saw? Yes. You're absolutely sure? Yes. The officer nodded, slowly, even though she couldn't see him. Thank you for answering. Then he hung up. The silence inside the cruiser felt thick. What was that about? I asked. Officer Graves didn't answer right away. Instead, he stared out the windshield toward Birch Lane. Then he said something that made my heart start pounding. She just made a mistake. What kind of mistake? He turned toward me. The kind that shows up very clearly in a police report. My stomach tightened. What do you mean? He started the engine again and pulled back onto the road. You said the lamp was broken when you walked into the room. Yeah. And Veronica was already on the floor. Right. He nodded. That means the lamp had already shattered before you got there. Yes. So here's the problem, he said quietly. In the report she filed earlier tonight. He paused. She said you were holding the lamp when you pushed her. The words sent a chill down my spine. Because if she claimed I was holding the lamp, but the lamp was already broken when I walked in, then her entire story was about to collapse. And the worst part? My parents had already locked me out of the house based on that lie. But the police report was about to reveal something even worse. Something Veronica had tried very hard to hide. The cruiser rolled slowly back onto Birch Lane, the tires humming softly against the pavement. I sat in silence, replaying Officer Nolan Graves's words in my head. She just made a mistake. But it didn't feel like a small mistake. It felt like the kind that breaks a story apart. I looked over at him. What happens now? We verify, he said simply. Verify what? Everything. The porch light of my parents' house appeared again at the end of the street. From this distance, it still looked normal. Quiet. Peaceful. The same house I had walked out of 100 times before. Except tonight I had been pushed out, and the police were driving me back. My stomach tightened as the cruiser slowed near the driveway. 2 other cars were parked outside now. One was my father's truck. The other was a second police vehicle. Looks like Officer Delaney already arrived, Graves muttered. My heart started pounding. I don't want to make things worse. You're not, he said calmly. If someone made a false report, we need to know. He parked the cruiser along the curb. For a moment, neither of us moved. Through the front window, I could see silhouettes moving inside the living room. My parents. And Veronica. I suddenly remembered the message she sent. You should run. The words sent a cold ripple through my chest. Officer. Why would she text me that? Graves glanced at me. Because something changed. What changed? Probably the same thing that caught my attention. And that is? The timeline. He opened the cruiser door. Come on. The night air felt colder when I stepped out. The leaves rustled along the sidewalk as we walked up the driveway together. For a second I thought about turning around. Just leaving. But then I remembered the way my father looked at me earlier. The anger in his eyes. The certainty. We know what happened. I couldn't let that be the final version of the story. Officer Graves knocked firmly on the front door. A few seconds passed. Then the door opened. My father, Darren Caro, stood there. His expression hardened the moment he saw me. What is she doing back here? Before I could say anything, Graves spoke calmly. We need to ask a few follow-up questions regarding the report. My father crossed his arms. She already admitted what she did. I'm afraid we're still sorting out some details, the officer replied. Behind him, my mother Elaine Caro stepped into view. Her eyes moved. From the officer to me, then back again. Lydia, she said quietly. Why are you here? I didn't come here, I said. He brought me. My father shook his head. This is ridiculous. She already assaulted her sister. Officer Graves stayed calm. That's what we're verifying. My father's voice rose slightly. What's there to verify? Veronica told you exactly what happened. Right on cue, Veronica appeared in the hallway behind them. She looked pale. For the first time that night, she didn't look calm. Her eyes locked onto mine. Then they flicked toward Officer Graves. You brought her back? She asked quietly. We need to clarify a few points, he said. My father stepped aside reluctantly, allowing us to enter. Walking back into that house felt strange, like stepping into a place that no longer belonged to me. The living room looked the same as always. Same couch. Same framed photos on the wall. Same faint smell of Cinnamon candles my mother loved. But the atmosphere was different now. Tense. Officer Delaney stood near the hallway with a notepad. He nodded when Graves walked in. Everything good? Maybe, Graves said. Then he turned toward Veronica. Miss Caro, I just spoke with your sister on the phone. Veronica crossed her arms. Yes. I'd like you to repeat your account again. Her eyes flicked toward my parents, then back to the officer. She pushed me, Veronica said quickly. We argued upstairs and she shoved me into the desk. And the lamp? She knocked it over. Graves nodded slowly. And you said she was holding the lamp when the argument started. Yes. And that's when she pushed you. Yes. My father spoke up again. Why are you asking her the same questions? Graves ignored him. Instead, he stepped toward the staircase. Would you mind showing us the room? Veronica hesitated. For just a second. Then she said, Fine. We all followed her upstairs. The hallway felt narrower than I remembered. Veronica opened her bedroom door slowly. The broken lamp was still on the floor beside her desk. Glass scattered across the carpet. Officer Delaney stepped inside first. He crouched down and examined the pieces. Then he looked up. Interesting? Veronica stiffened slightly. What? Delaney pointed toward the base of the lamp. The bulb. My mother frowned. What about it? The officer picked it up carefully. It's still screwed into the socket. My father looked confused. So? Delaney stood up. That means the lamp wasn't being held when it broke. Silence filled the room. Veronica blinked. What? If someone was holding the lamp during the push, he explained calmly, the bulb would usually separate or shatter differently. My stomach tightened. Officer Graves stepped closer to the desk. More importantly, he added, the glass pattern suggests the lamp fell from the desk, not from someone's hands. My father frowned. I don't understand. Graves looked directly at Veronica. It looks like the lamp was knocked off the desk before anyone entered the room. Veronica's face drained of color. That's not true. Officer Delaney gestured toward the doorway. And the hallway camera next door might confirm that. Everyone turned. What camera? My mother asked. Delaney looked at us calmly. Your neighbor, Mr. Aldrich, installed a security camera last month. My chest tightened. The one pointing at the side of the house? Exactly. He flipped open his notepad. It covers this entire hallway window. Veronica's breathing suddenly grew uneven. And according to Mr. Aldrich, he paused. Someone walked past that window at 8:26. The room went silent. Because the scream happened at 8:30. And if someone walked past the window at 8:26, that meant Veronica had been moving around before the incident, not lying on the floor like she claimed. Officer Graves looked straight at her. Miss Caro, would you like to explain that? For the first time all night, Veronica had no answer. And suddenly the story my parents believed so easily was starting to collapse in front of them. The silence in Veronica's bedroom felt heavy. Everyone was staring at her now. My father, my mother, both police officers, even me. The broken lamp still lay on the carpet between us, its pieces catching the light from the ceiling. Officer Nolan Graves spoke first. Miss Caro, he said calmly. The camera outside recorded someone walking past the hallway window at 8:26. Veronica's arms were still crossed, but her shoulders had gone stiff. So? She said. So you told us you were already on the floor when your sister came upstairs. I was. Graves tilted his head slightly. But the footage suggests you were still walking around 4 minutes before the scream. That doesn't prove anything. Her voice sounded sharper now. Officer Delaney stepped forward with his notepad. It actually proves quite a bit. Veronica's eyes flicked toward him. How? Because if you were moving around at 8:26, Delaney said. Then you weren't already injured on the floor. My father shifted uncomfortably. Maybe she walked to the window before the argument, he said. Graves nodded. That's possible. For a moment I thought he might leave it there. But then he added something that made the air in the room feel colder. Except the footage shows something else. Veronica froze. What? Graves looked directly at her. You were carrying something. My stomach tightened. What kind of something? My mother asked. A lamp. The word landed like a stone. Everyone turned toward the broken lamp on the carpet. Veronica's lips parted slightly. That's not. But Graves kept talking. You walked past the window holding the lamp from this desk. That's not true, she said quickly. We'll know soon enough when we review the full footage. My father rubbed his temples. This is ridiculous. But the certainty in his voice had faded. Graves crouched beside the desk again. You also mentioned that Lydia shoved you while you were standing near the desk. Yes, Veronica said. And the lamp broke when it hit the floor. Yes. He nodded slowly. Then can you explain why the base of the lamp has a dent on the side? She blinked. What? He turned the lamp base slightly so everyone could see. There's a clear impact mark here. So? That dent didn't happen when it hit the carpet. Veronica's face had gone pale. My mother looked confused. What does that mean? Graves stood up again. It means the lamp struck something solid before it landed. My father frowned. Like what? The officer glanced toward the wall beside the desk. A faint scuff mark sat just above the baseboard. He pointed to it. Like that. Everyone stared at the mark. I felt a strange chill run through me. Because I remembered that spot. The desk had been pushed against that wall for years. If the lamp hit it hard enough to leave a dent, someone must have thrown it. Officer Delaney spoke quietly. That's consistent with the footage. Veronica turned toward him sharply. You haven't even seen the footage yet. No, he said, but we've spoken with the neighbor who has. My father's eyes widened slightly. What did he say? Delaney flipped a page in his notebook. He said he saw someone in the upstairs hallway throw an object toward the wall. The room went silent, again. Then he finished the sentence. And that someone looked like Veronica. My mother stepped back slowly. That can't be right. Veronica shook her head quickly. He's lying. No, Graves said calmly. Mr. Aldrich has no reason to lie. My father looked from Veronica to the officers, then to me. For the first time all night, doubt appeared in his eyes. Veronica, he said slowly. Did you throw the lamp? No. Her voice cracked. I told you what happened. You said Lydia pushed you. She did. Then why does the evidence show you holding the lamp before the incident? Veronica didn't answer. Her breathing had grown faster. The calm mask she always wore was starting to crack. Officer Graves folded his arms. There's another detail we should mention. Veronica looked at him nervously. What detail? The phone call you made earlier. Her eyes flickered. What about it? You called your parents at 7:50 and told them you were scared of your sister. Yes. But according to the footage, Graves said, you were walking around calmly half an hour later. That doesn't mean anything. Actually, he replied quietly, it suggests something important. The officer paused. Then he said the words that made my heart start racing. It suggests you were preparing them. My mother frowned. Preparing them for what? For the story, Graves said. The room felt smaller suddenly. Veronica's eyes widened. That's not what happened. Then tell us what did. No one spoke. The silence stretched for several seconds. Finally, my father looked at Veronica again. His voice was softer now. Sweetheart, just explain it. She swallowed. Her eyes darted toward the door, then toward me. For a moment it looked like she might finally tell the truth. But instead she said something that made my stomach twist. "You're all missing the point." "What point?" Graves asked. She pointed straight at me. "Lydia shouldn't even be here." The room fell silent again. Then Veronica added quietly, "Because she wasn't supposed to come back tonight." A chill ran down my spine. Because people don't say something like that unless the plan was meant to last longer. Much longer. And suddenly I realized something terrifying. Veronica hadn't just tried to blame me for breaking a lamp. She had been trying to get me out of the house. For good. But the question that no one had asked yet was the most important one. Why? Veronica's words hung in the air. She wasn't supposed to come back tonight. No one moved. My father blinked slowly, like he wasn't sure he heard her correctly. "What do you mean by that?" he asked. Veronica looked from him to my mother, then toward the two officers standing in the room. The confidence she always carried seemed to be slipping away. "I mean," she said carefully, "this whole situation was supposed to calm down." "Calm down?" my mother repeated. "Yes." Officer Nolan Graves watched her closely. "So you expected Lydia to leave and stay away?" Veronica shrugged weakly. "People cool off when they have space." My stomach tightened. "That's not what you said earlier," I said quietly. She turned toward me, her eyes sharp. "You weren't supposed to involve the police." The sentence landed heavily. My father frowned. "She didn't involve them," he said. "We called them." Veronica opened her mouth, then stopped. Officer Delaney stepped forward slightly. "Miss Caro, earlier you told us Lydia attacked you." "Yes." "And that she pushed you during an argument." "Yes." "But now you're saying she was supposed to leave and things would calm down." "Yes." He tilted his head. "That sounds less like an assault, and more like a plan." Veronica's shoulders stiffened. "It wasn't a plan." "Then help us understand," Delaney said. She stayed quiet. Officer Graves stepped closer to the desk again. "Let's review what we know." He spoke slowly like he was laying out pieces of a puzzle. "You called your parents at 7:50 and told them you were scared of Lydia." Veronica said nothing. "At 8:26 you were seen walking through the hallway carrying the lamp." Still nothing. "Then around 8:30 you screamed." My father shifted uncomfortably. "And when Lydia arrived in the room," Graves continued, "the lamp was already broken." The officer looked directly at Veronica. "So here's the question." He paused. "Why would someone call their parents in advance, carry a lamp around the hallway, and then scream after breaking it?" The silence stretched. My mother looked at Veronica, her face pale. "Sweetheart, what is he talking about?" Veronica's jaw tightened. "Nothing." "Veronica," my father said firmly. She didn't answer. Officer Delaney flipped another page in his notebook. "There's also the matter of the message you sent Lydia." Veronica's eyes flicked toward me. "What message?" my father asked. I pulled out my phone. The screen lit up with the text. "You should run." My mother read it over my shoulder. Her expression changed instantly. "Veronica, why would you send that?" Veronica swallowed. "I didn't mean it like that." "Then what did you mean?" "I just meant she should stay away tonight." "Why?" my father asked. Veronica hesitated again. Officer Graves spoke quietly. "Because you were afraid of something happening when we looked deeper." Her head snapped toward him. "That's not true." "Then explain the message." She opened her mouth, closed it, then looked toward the floor. My father rubbed his forehead, slowly. "This doesn't make sense." Officer Delaney cleared his throat. "There's one more thing." Everyone looked at him. "The neighbor's camera doesn't just face the hallway window." Veronica's head lifted slightly. "What?" "It also catches part of the driveway." My stomach tightened. "And?" my father asked. Delaney glanced at his notes. At 8:15 tonight, someone arrived at this house. My mother frowned. But we weren't home yet. Exactly. The officer looked at Veronica. The footage shows a car pulling into the driveway. Veronica's breathing suddenly grew uneven. What car? My father asked. Delaney met his eyes. Not yours. The room went quiet. A small gray sedan. My father shook his head. We don't own a gray sedan. I know, the officer replied. He turned the page of his notebook. The driver stayed for approximately 10 minutes. My heart started beating, faster. Did someone come inside? My mother asked. Delaney nodded. Yes. And according to Mr. Aldrich, they entered through the front door. Everyone turned toward Veronica again. Her face had gone pale. My father's voice was low now. Veronica. Who came to the house tonight? She didn't answer. Veronica. He repeated. Still nothing. Officer Graves spoke quietly. The camera shows the person leaving at 8:25. My chest tightened. 1 minute before the hallway footage, Veronica's eyes darted toward the officers. You're misunderstanding things. Then explain it, Graves said. She looked around the room like she was searching for something, an excuse, an escape. Finally, she said something that made my pulse spike. It was just a friend. What friend? My mother asked. Veronica hesitated, then said a name none of us had heard before. Caleb. My father frowned. Who's Caleb? Just someone I know. Officer Delaney looked down at his notes again. That's interesting. Veronica stiffened. Why? Because Mr. Aldrich also mentioned something else about the man in the gray sedan. My stomach dropped. What? My father asked. Delaney looked up slowly. He said the man seemed nervous. Nervous how? He kept checking the street before leaving. The officer paused, then added quietly. Like someone who didn't want to be seen. The room felt colder. My father looked at Veronica again. This time the doubt in his eyes was unmistakable. Why would a friend act like that? Veronica didn't answer, because the truth was finally starting to surface, and when it did, my parents were about to realize that the broken lamp was the smallest part of the story. My father kept staring at Veronica like he was looking at a stranger. Why didn't you tell us someone came here tonight? He asked. Veronica rubbed her arms nervously. Because it wasn't important. Officer Nolan Graves raised an eyebrow. A person arriving shortly before a reported assault is usually very important. It had nothing to do with Lydia, Veronica insisted. My mother looked shaken. Then why hide it? Veronica didn't answer. Officer Delaney stepped toward the doorway. We'll need the name of the man who visited. I told you, she said quickly. His name is Caleb. Caleb what? She hesitated. I don't remember his last name. Graves and Delaney exchanged a quick glance. My father's voice turned sharp. You don't remember the last name of someone who came into our house tonight? Veronica's eyes flicked toward the window. It's not a big deal. Actually, Graves said calmly, it might be. The room fell quiet again. Then Delaney asked a question that made my stomach tighten. Did Caleb break the lamp? Veronica's head snapped up. No. Did he argue with you? No. Did he see Lydia at all tonight? No. Every answer came a little faster than the last. Too fast. Graves folded his arms. What was he doing here then? Veronica's jaw tightened. We were just talking. At 8:15 on a Tuesday night while your parents were gone? Yes. About what? She didn't respond. My father's patience finally snapped. Veronica. His voice was low now. Dangerously low. What is going on? She swallowed. Nothing. Don't lie to me. I'm not. My father stepped closer to her. Then explain why you invited a stranger into this house and then blamed your sister for something she didn't do. Veronica's breathing grew shallow. I didn't blame her. Then what do you call it? She glanced at me for a second. Just 1 second. But in that moment I saw something I had never seen in her before. Fear. Real fear. Officer Delaney broke the silence. Mr. Caro, there's another detail from the neighbor's camera. Everyone looked at him again. What detail? My mother asked. The man in the gray sedan didn't leave alone. My chest tightened. What do you mean? My father asked. Delaney flipped another page. According to the footage, he carried something out of the house. Veronica stiffened. What kind of something? My father asked slowly. The officer met his eyes. A small metal box. My mother frowned. We don't own a metal box. My heart suddenly skipped. Except we did. My eyes drifted toward the hallway downstairs, toward the small office near the front of the house, where my father kept something very important. I felt my throat tighten. Dad, I said quietly. He looked at me. What? The office safe. His expression changed instantly. Without another word, he rushed out of the room and down the hallway. We all followed. The door to the office stood half open. My father pushed it wider and stepped inside. Then he stopped. For a long second, no one spoke. Finally, he said something that made my chest tighten. It's gone. My mother stepped past him. What's gone? The lockbox. What lockbox? The one I keep in the safe. Her eyes widened. The one with the store cash? My father nodded slowly. That's over $12,000. The room went silent. Officer Graves turned toward Veronica. Miss Caro, he said quietly. Her face had gone completely pale. Did you invite this Caleb person to your house to take that money? No. Then why was he carrying the lockbox when he left? I don't know. My father's voice shook. Veronica, tell me you didn't let someone rob us. I didn't. Then how did he get into my safe? She didn't answer. The silence stretched painfully. Officer Delaney spoke next. There's something else. My stomach tightened again. What? My father asked. The footage shows Caleb leaving the house at 8:25. Yes. And Lydia says the scream happened at 8:30. My father frowned. So? So that gives us a 5-minute gap, Delaney said. He looked at Veronica. 5 minutes between Caleb leaving with the money and you screaming. The room felt like it had lost all the air. My mother whispered, Veronica. But the officer finished the thought out loud, which suggests the broken lamp and the accusation happened after the money was already gone. My father stared at his older daughter, slowly, like the truth was finally starting to sink in. You blamed Lydia, he said quietly. Veronica's eyes filled with tears. I had to. The words hung in the air. My mother gasped. What? Veronica looked down at Isa, the floor. I had to blame someone. My father's voice cracked. You framed your sister? I didn't mean for it to go this far. You told us she attacked you. I panicked. Officer Graves stepped forward. Why? Veronica wiped her face with trembling hands. Because Caleb said he'd help me. Help you with what? Delaney asked. She closed her eyes. With a debt. The word sent a chill through the room. What debt? My father asked. Veronica whispered the answer. $30,000. My mother staggered slightly against the wall. My father's face had gone pale. You let someone steal from us? To pay a debt? Veronica started crying harder. I thought he was just going to borrow it. Officer Graves shook his head slowly. Miss Caro, you understand this is now a criminal investigation. She nodded weakly. But the worst part hadn't come yet. Because the police report that started this entire situation was about to turn against the person who filed it. No one spoke for several seconds. The quiet inside my father's office felt heavier than any argument. Veronica stood near the doorway, her shoulders shaking, tears running down her face. My mother had both hands over her mouth. My father looked like someone had just pulled the ground out from under him. Officer Nolan Graves was the first to move. He stepped closer to Veronica, his voice calm but firm. "Miss Caro, I need to confirm something." Veronica wiped her eyes but didn't look up. "You told dispatch your sister assaulted you," he said. She nodded slowly. "Yes." "You told your parents the same thing." "Yes." "And that statement was false." The room held its breath. For a moment Veronica said nothing. Then her voice came out small. "Yes." My father closed his eyes. Just hearing that single word seemed to break something inside him. Officer Graves continued. "You understand filing a false report is a serious matter." "I know," she whispered, "and accusing someone of assault can have legal consequences." "I know. But you did it anyway?" Her shoulders trembled again. I panicked. The officer glanced briefly toward Officer Delaney before speaking again. "You panicked because someone you invited into the house took your father's lockbox." "Yes." "And instead of telling the truth?" She nodded weakly. "You blamed your sister." Another nod. My mother finally lowered her hands. Her voice sounded shaky. "Veronica, why didn't you just tell us about the debt?" Veronica laughed bitterly through her tears. "You would have thrown me out." My father's eyes snapped open. "I would have helped you." "No, you wouldn't," she said quietly. "You don't know that. You barely listen to me unless something goes wrong." The room went silent. Again? Officer Delaney cleared his throat. "Miss Caro, the man you identified as Caleb will need to be located." Veronica nodded. "He took the money," she said quietly. "We're aware. Will you find him?" "That's our job." My father leaned heavily against the desk. "How could this happen?" he muttered. No one answered. Because the truth was sitting right in front of us. And it had nothing to do with broken lamps or arguments. It had everything to do with the fact that my parents had believed Veronica without ever asking me what happened. Officer Graves finally turned toward me. "Miss Caro." "Yes?" "You're free to go wherever you'd like tonight." I let out a slow breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. "Thank you." My father looked up suddenly. "Wait." Everyone turned toward him. He looked at me, his eyes full of something I had never seen before. Regret. "Lydia," he said quietly. I stayed where I was. "You can come back inside." The offer hung in the air. For 24 years, this house had been my home. But tonight something had changed. I thought about the moment earlier when the door locked behind me, about the way my father said he knew what happened, about my mother telling me to go somewhere else, and how none of them had asked for my side. I shook my head slowly. "I don't think I'm ready for that." My mother's eyes filled with tears. "We made a mistake." "Yes," I said gently, "but it wasn't just tonight." The silence that followed felt honest. For the first time all evening, no one tried to argue. Officer Graves closed his notebook. "The police report will reflect the updated statements," he said calmly. My father nodded slowly. "Thank you, officer." Graves glanced at me once more. "You handled yourself well tonight." I gave a small nod. Then I picked up my backpack from the floor. As I walked toward the front door, my father spoke again. "Lydia." I turned slightly. "I'm sorry." 3 simple words. Words I had waited years to hear. But something about them felt different now. Because apologies don't undo locked doors. They just acknowledge them. "I know," I said quietly. Then I stepped outside. The night air felt cool against my face. Officer Graves walked with me down the driveway. "You still heading to Harlan's diner?" he asked. "Yeah." He nodded. I can give you another ride. Thanks. As we reached the cruiser, I glanced back at the house one last time. The porch light still glowed softly. But now the truth had reached the people inside. The police report that began the night as proof against me had ended as proof that I was the only one telling the truth. Officer Graves opened the passenger door. "You okay?" he asked. I thought about the last few hours. About Veronica's lie. About my parents' doubt. About standing outside that locked door. And then I said something I hadn't expected. "I think I will be." The cruiser pulled away from Birch Lane. Behind us, my childhood home slowly disappeared into the dark. And for the first time in a long while, I felt like my life was finally moving forward instead of waiting for someone else to believe me. If this story stayed with you, take a second to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And tell me in the comments, have you ever been blamed for something you didn't do? I read every comment and your stories matter here.